These two tools have completely changed everything for me. Let me show you what they do. I'm Kenny, and over the last few months, I've been pushing Claude Code way beyond just coding. I've talked about Claude skills and how you can use them to turn Claude Code into a personal assistant that can help you with anything. And I'll link those videos in the description. The goal is for Claude Code to help you with all kinds of tasks, from work to personal. I'm always interested in finding ways to really unlock my productivity and effectiveness and just get as much leverage as possible. And during this time, there's just two tools that I've found to be game changers for me. This first tool is called Claude Trace, and this gives you complete visibility into the inner workings of Claude Code so you can understand how Claude Code thinks and how it makes decisions. More importantly, it puts you in Claude's shoes so you can actually see things from Claude's perspective. This will actually help you engineer Claude Code to get exactly what you want out of it and get it to perform better across all tasks. Let me show you what I mean by that. Claude Trace basically logs everything that happens during a session with Claude Code, including all of the prompts that are sent back and forth with Claude. So here you can see a trace that I just ran earlier, where my prompt was to help me generate 2 thumbnails for my next video. At the very top, you'll see the system prompt, which first of all is going to give you a ton of insight into how Anthropic actually instructs Claude Code and makes it such an amazing agent. And if you've never seen Claude Code or other commercial agent system prompts before, you'll immediately notice how detailed and comprehensive this system prompt is. Reading through this is going to be extremely insightful for you to understand why Claude Code is so good. You'll learn a lot of new things too. Like, for example, here, Claude actually comes with a subagent that it can call Claude Code Guide, which allows it to get information from the official Claude Code and Claude Agent SDK docs. So I bet you didn't know that. And obviously you're going to have really detailed information of how it can use its built-in tools, like for managing tasks using the to-do right tools. You have instructions on how to ask questions as Claude Code works, tool usage policies, and then you'll notice that based on our settings in our Claude Code project, there are some tools that are pre-approved. So that information is getting injected to the system prompt, letting Claude Code know that it can just go ahead and use these tools without requiring approval. Obviously, you have some information about our local environment. And then this is really cool. I showed in my previous video where I turned Claude Code into a personal assistant, how you could do that with an output style, which basically adapts the system prompt to give Claude Code a totally different personality and set of goals. And so you can see the output style here for my personal assistant L, exactly where it's injected in the system prompt. And if you were to run Claude Code out of the box, you would see a totally different section here detailing Claude Code's identity as a software developer and co-programmer. After the system prompt, there's all of the tool definitions. And so here there are 30 different tool definitions, including task for spinning up subagents, bash command. So these are all the built-in tools that Claude ships with. It has an explicit tool here, ask user question, to prompt the user whenever it needs more information. Then once you get through the built-in tools, you'll notice that all of the MCP tools that we have set up with Claude are also here. So they're always defined in the system prompt. And this is where if you run your /context command, you'll see that context being taken up in the context window. This is where it is. It's all in the system prompt. So you can see all of the MCP tools that we have here that are connected from our plugin for our YouTube content strategist. After all the tool definitions, you'll notice that we switch over to user messages, and there are several system reminders that are injected here before you actually get to the initial user message, which is down here. So if we look at some of these system reminders, the way that the Claude Code harness does this is by adding user messages that have the XML tags for a system reminder. This is a reminder for Claude to use its to-dos and to not mention them to the user, but just go ahead and create them. This second system reminder is actually generated by us using a hook. Now, this conversation was with my personal assistant, and we have a hook that injects this Claude MD file as a system reminder where we're explaining the context system that the personal assistant has access to and should manage. So this is just a nice way to ensure that Claude is always aware of the context system and is using it. And then you know how Claude Code always knows what file you have open if you're using it in an IDE? Well, here you can see it's just injected via a system reminder. Here's another system reminder that we're also triggering with a hook, reminding Claude to update the work status MD file, as well as create any relevant memories that it has in this session before giving the final response to the user. After all of that and the first user message, you get the assistant message, and you can see that the thinking tokens are also displayed here, along with all of the tool calls and regular messages from both the assistant and the user. So I'm not going to go through this entire conversation, but basically you have all of the back and forth, the entire workflow that Claude did, all of the tools it called, all of the outputs from the tools, all the files it wrote, etc. Now, getting the most out of Claude Code or any agent really comes down to giving the right information at the right time, aka context engineering. And to be effective at context engineering, you really need to know what's going on behind the scenes. How your prompts, tools, commands, agents, MCPs, how all of that is used by Claude Code. And this tool lets you do exactly that. So let me show you how you can use it. The only caveat for using Claude Trace is that you have to have the NPM version of Claude Code installed, which does require Node. Most recently, Claude released this native installation for Claude Code across Mac and Windows. With one command, you can do this native installation, but you are going to need the NPM version. So you want to switch over to this tab and just make sure that you have this version installed to be able to use Claude Trace. Unfortunately, Claude Trace doesn't currently work with the native installation. I've tried it. I had actually upgraded to the native installation of Claude Code, but switched back to the NPM version just to be able to use Claude Trace. If you do have trouble uninstalling the native version of Claude Code, before installing the NPM version, one thing you can do is just open up your terminal and type in which Claude. And this will show you where Claude Code is actually installed. So you can literally just delete that folder from your system, and that will uninstall Claude Code for you. Once you have the NPM version of Claude Code installed, then the next step is just to install Claude Trace, which is also going to be using Node. So you can just run this command in your terminal, and then to use it in your terminal, instead of writing Claude, you're just going to use Claude Trace instead. And you can use it in any of your projects in any terminal, just like you would with Claude, but simply running Claude Trace, and that's going to start logging everything for you. So I'll show you an example of that. Just open up a project either in your terminal or your IDE, and then instead of running Claude, run Claude Trace, and you'll see the Claude Trace message up here. So that's how you know that you are logging, and then you'll see where the logs are being written to. The actual log files are written to this JSON line file, and then the HTML file is just a nice way to display everything like you saw in our browser. So you can just copy this file path here and then paste it into your browser. And then you get what we were showing earlier with the HTML file. Now this doesn't have anything yet because I haven't actually prompted Claude, but if we switch back, we can say, "Hi L." And you'll see there's some thinking going on that Claude's doing. Automatically, it's going to load the context since we have that system reminder for it to read the current context and just get awareness of the current state of things. You do have to wait for Claude's response for the log to completely update because it needs the full trace of that conversation turn. So now if we hop over to the HTML file, here you can see now we have all of this logged with our initial message, and then the context reading, and then the response from Claude. So super straightforward to use. If you read through the README, there's also these other ways that you can use Claude Trace. I'll just show you one other example where you can use it to create the HTML file for an existing log file. So these JSON line files are automatically created by native Claude Code. And we just have to find them on our computer, and then we can use this command to generate the HTML report from a previously logged file. So you can do this for all of your existing conversations with Claude. To do this, you first want to navigate to your user folder and then find your .claude folder. And this is a hidden folder, so you do have to show hidden files. You then want to go into the projects folder, and then here it's organized by the different projects that you have. So if I just go into the one for my personal assistant, then you'll see all of these log files. So these are existing conversations that I have from my personal assistant. And then we can just use this command with the actual path to the log file and naming the HTML file that we want out. The repo to this will, of course, be linked in the description. This next tool allows you to use Claude Code from your phone. And I know you might be thinking, we already have Claude Code Web that you can use on your phone through a browser. And we also have Claude Code now in the native iOS app for Claude. But what I want to show you is completely different, and it's changed the way I use Claude Code as my personal assistant. So here I have the Claude app on mobile. And if I open this up, you can see I've selected Claude Code here on the sidebar. And I'm going to start a new session. And when you start a new session, you have to choose a repository that you want Claude Code to work in. And that's because it's designed to code, right? It's a software programmer. So this is tied to your GitHub. So it's got all of your repositories here. And if I asked it, what skills do you have? This might take a little while as it spins up a Claude Code instance. Because this is running in its own cloud environment, it's different from the Claude Code that you have on your actual computer. So it's more of like a fresh Claude Code install on a new cloud instance. So you can see it replies that it only has one skill. So it actually doesn't have all of the same skills, plugins, MCP servers that we have set up with our Claude Code that's running on our computer. Now, if I exit this and go to the web version of Claude and do the same thing here, again, we have to choose a repository and then ask it, what skills do you have? Here, it's actually getting really confused, and it's actually trying to search the web for skills that it might have. So I think it's looking up documentation and stuff. Once again, it doesn't find any other skills besides this session start hook, which it's saying is the one skill it has. So it doesn't have any actual skills. And the reason is because Claude Code for web spins up a default version of Claude Code in a web server and clones your existing repo into it to work on your code before pushing those changes to GitHub. So the tool I want to introduce you to is called Happy, and you can see I have it installed here on my phone. So if I open this up, you'll see in this terminals page, I can start a new session. You can actually use Happy with Codex or Claude. We're going to be using it with Claude here. And you'll notice that it's connected to my Mac, not just some remote server that's going to clone my GitHub repo. This is my actual system that it's connected to. And this app uses end-to-end encryption, so everything's pretty secure. Down here, I can define which folder I actually want to work in. I have my personal assistant project selected. So if I ask here, what skills do you have? Then the answer should be pretty different. Similar to when we run it on my computer, this is my personal assistant now looking through all of the context that it normally would when we run it on my computer. And that's because this is the exact Claude Code that's running on my computer. It's just being triggered through the app. So it's gone ahead and read through our context system. It's looking at its memories, and now it's asking if it can run this search. So we'll just hit yes. You can see Claude intelligently changes the title of this session and conversation. And then we're getting some updates to the work status. So we'll go ahead and allow edits here. And then our actual output styles kicking in here saying, hey, Kenny, I'm Elle, your personal assistant. And if we scroll through this, you get all of the context for our personal assistant, outlining the YouTube capabilities for content planning, research and analysis, project management. And then if we look at the specialized skill, sure enough, we have our Excel skill here, our cohort analysis skill for building financial models in Excel, Obsidian for reading our notes. And then down here, you can see all of the YouTube skills that come with our YouTube Content Strategist plugin. So how cool is that? I can use it for all kinds of non-coding things on my phone, and it has all of the context of Claude Code on my Mac. So for example, I can ask it to come up with a couple of title variations for this video. So I'm asking it to help me come up with a couple of title ideas for my next video. Right away, L is going to use the YouTube title skill to make a totally optimized YouTube title for my video. So you can see the video titles that L came up with. These two tools changed how I use Claude Code forever. I wish I'd known about these two Claude Code tools sooner, etc., etc. And then she's gone ahead and updated her work status so that context is persisted for the next chat. And what's really cool about this is if you're out somewhere and you just need something done really quickly, you can spin up Claude Code like I showed you in any project or folder on your computer, and you can have Claude Code access any folder in your computer if you wanted to load an image or have Claude read a document that's on your system. Things that have nothing to do with coding but will unlock your productivity, you can now do it using this app. To get started using Happy, it's super simple. Again, I'll include this in the description below, but you just want to head over to the Happy repo, and there's very detailed instructions for getting this set up on your computer and connecting it to your phone, which is just going to be scanning a QR code. So super simple and easy to set up. So I hope you see the value in these two tools and are excited to try them out. Let me know in the comments what you guys think and if you find these tools useful. And check out the videos in the description to learn how to get the most out of Claude Code. That's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.